Hello and welcome. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 8th and final show and tell of this phase of product development for BoPS, a new back office planning system for local planning authorities. We're recording this live. We're not streaming it live to YouTube today because of a pre-election period for the London mayoral elections, but we will post this to YouTube once we are able to. We may have colleagues joining us in the meeting, so apologies for any disruption. We can proceed. My name is Tom Buttrick. I'm the product owner, or one of the product owners here at Southwark Council, where we're working with our other partner boroughs and BoPS, our delivery partner, to deliver the BoPS tool. Next slide, please. That's me. Sorry. For those who don't know, and we are at sprint 8. Of this phase of development. BoPS is a back office planning system that makes it more efficient to process planning applications. The tool is designed by planning officers for planning officers, and we've been working closely with our colleagues our colleagues with partner organizations to deliver the tool. The idea behind BoPS is it's there to process planning applications in a more efficient and intuitive way. So planning officers and local planning authorities can make decisions quicker and use less resources. So where are we? As I mentioned, we are at sprint 8 of 8. We are at the end of this phase of development, where we've further refined the lawful development certificate MVP, started working on householder applications and the wider program of work. So moving on to what we've been doing this sprint, we'll give you an overview now of that. Please do ask any questions at the end. We don't have a Slido deck this morning, but if you could save your questions for the end and we will answer those. So what have we been doing? As it's the end of this phase of development, sprint 8 has been very much around wrapping up the tasks that we've set, ready for the next phase, which will take place after Easter. The activities we've undertaken are including site location maps within the tool. That's the red line boundary maps for all the planners out there, and we now display that map within the tool. I'll be demoing that shortly so you can see what that looks like. We've also been adding and editing constraints, and these are planning constraints. So these are the planning policy designations that are relevant to a site and therefore relevant to the planning application. We've been fixing and tweaking lots of bugs, looking at layouts, looking at the language we use, and we further refine the tool through those processes. We've also been starting to map out the other types of lawful development certificates that the application, that the tool will look at. We've been looking at we've been looking at our householder applications starting to look at our householder applications MVP, looking at the work we've previously done on householder, reviewing that and moving that forward. Only yesterday we did a session where we were looking at how and why we consult internal consultees within a planning division for householder applications. Also important to note that we had the first BoPS partner board meeting that took place this week, and I'll touch on that later. And we've also explored Camden's digital engagement project, where we've met Rich Limbrick there, and we're discussing how our two projects can align and work together. So live demo time. I am going to just come out of the presentation here, and I'm going to jump over to deliver a live demo. Now, as we all know, a show and tell is usually it shows the incremental improvements and further steps in functionality that have been delivered through the sprint. And we recognize that if you only watch one show and tell, you only get a small kind of snapshot of that. But we all know that you've all watched all 8 show and tells. So what we'd like to do is what I'd like to show you now is a demonstration of a happy path, an application proceeding through from submission to determination. for a lawful development certificate. So you can see the overall journey here. I won't show you absolutely everything that the tool can do, but it would be we think it's a really good idea just so you can see that process. So what I'll do without further ado is I'm actually just going to jump into the managers module, and I am just going to view all applications, and I'm going to assign as a manager an application to a case officer, and I'm going to add that to Seymour, and I'm going to confirm that. And now this application is assigned to Seymour. I'm now going to log out, and I'm going to log in as Seymour, who is the case officer, the planning officer for the application. So just going to log in as Seymour. Here I am, Seymour Marat, case officer. And I can see that the application that's been assigned, which is 452 here, 11 Abbey Gardens, is now assigned to me. And I'm now going to do my job and determine the planning application. So click on the application, and I can see here the details for the LDC. At the top here now we have the description. We can clearly, as the case officer, I can clearly see what's being proposed. I can see the address. I can see the application hasn't been started yet. I'm about to start that revalidation, and I'm also I can also see the target date. So just a quick flick through, looking down at the application information, we have the details here. We have the site map, and as we said, this is 11 Abbey Gardens. And for those of you who don't know Abbey Gardens in Southwark, that is just here down in Bermondsey. As the case officer, I can clearly see that the red line boundary. I'm gonna, for the purpose of this demo, I'm gonna take it red as it's the correct boundary. Yep, when I validate it, I can confirm that that's valid. Further details of the proposal are listed here, and this is the data, excuse me, that's pushed through from our sister project, the Ripper tool, Reducing Invalid Planning Applications tool, which relates to details around the application. Now, this application is adding a chimney stack, and we can see here that not all of these questions specifically relate to that. So, but if it was something else like a rear extension or something similar, that information would also be here. The information that's proposed relates to the type of planning application. So the information that's displayed relates to the type of planning application it is, or the type of development it is. So again, we have the documents. I'll just go back to that in a second. We have constraints. We have the application dates now and contact information. There's me, also the applicant, and there we go. So I will now just proceed to just quickly validating the document. The application. We can check the documents. We're going to confirm, yes, it is valid. I'm going to confirm that it's actually a roof plan where the chimney is going to go. I'm going to give it the document number 001. I do want the application to show on the decision notice. That's a very important step, as we know, and it's publicly available. There's no data on there which the public shouldn't see, so I'm going to save that. So the application has been updated. I'm just going to go back to the validation, and I can confirm that yes, the application is valid. It was received a couple of days ago, so that will be the start date. I'm going to save that, and I can confirm that the application is valid. If I jump over to my email here, as I'm also the applicant as well as the case officer, obviously no conflict of interest there, I can confirm that as the applicant, I can confirm that the applicant has received the confirmation that it's valid and it has been started. So jumping back to the tool, I can now proceed to processing the application. I'm going to take this as given that yes, it is lawful for the purposes of time today. So yes, it is lawful. It's not awful, it's lawful. And I'm going to give you the reason why. So I'm just going to copy and paste some text here for the reason. And obviously, when we, as a planning officers, we know that the application is lawful because it meets the tests in the regulations. In this instance, particularly class A of part 1 of the GDPO. And I'm going to tell my manager that it's lawful. Great. So I'm now going to submit my recommendation to the manager. Here we can go. We can see the draft decision notice that will be prepared. We can see the text here that I've added to confirm that it's lawful. We've got the reference number for the plan, and if I wanted to, I could download it as a PDF. But in this instance, I am just going to submit this recommendation to grant the LDC to my manager. There we go. So we can see here now that it's awaiting a decision. If I jump back to my caseload here, there's a number of tabs here. I can now see that this application 452 is now awaiting determination by the manager. So I can clearly see where how my caseload is going, at which stage of the process they're in. So we now need to determine the planning application as manager. So I'm going to log out as a case officer. I'm going to jump back in as the manager. And here it is, 452, awaiting determination. Fantastic. So as I know that Seymour is a great planning officer and I usually doesn't need telling what to do, I'm going to take this as read, but obviously I can review the application. I can review the drawings. I can confirm it's lawful myself. Obviously that will be the role of the manager, but for the purposes of time today, I'm going to take it as read. And I will review the assessment. The recommendation is here, that it's granted. These are the reasons why, which actually goes in the decision notice. I have the note from Seymour here saying it's lawful. And actually, yes, I agree. We want to grant the consent here for this chimney stack. It is lawful development, and I am going to confirm that. So agreed, and I'm going to save it. And now I'd like to publish the determination. I'm going to send the decision notice to the applicant. So just one last check. Everything looks good. And I'm going to determine the application. So we can see here confirmation to the manager that decision notice has been sent to the applicant. I'm going to jump back to my email here. And there we go. There is confirmation that it's been granted. I am just going to take the PDF. I think if I open it, click on it, it will open in Internet Explorer. So I don't want to do that. And I'm just going to jump to, sorry about this, just jump to Chrome, and I'm going to paste that in here. And hopefully that should work. There we go. The decision notice. The applicant can download the decision notice, saving it here, and they have their copy of the decision notice. So jumping back to the tool, I can see as the manager that there's a number of applications not started still. I need to assign those. And here, over here at 452 in the close applications, that has been determined. So I'm just going to jump back to the actual application. Sorry, and I'd like to show you the audit log for this one. So I'm just going to just show you the audit log. So all the steps, the primary steps that we've just been through are recorded in the audit log. So here we can see that the application was received 2 days ago. I assigned it as the manager. I then determined it as the case officer. I then agreed with the recommendation with the notes that I made, and I actually published published the determination and sent that to the applicant. So there we go. We can clearly see the steps that were taken there. So that shows, very briefly, a whistle-stop tour of a happy path of a valid application for an LDC application, and the steps that the determination, steps to determination for the application. So I'm now going to jump back to the show and tell slides, and I am going to hand over to Pete, who will actually then demo the prototype for the householder application work we've done. Pete.
Yeah, we've got, let me just share screen. I thought we were going to go into the board meeting, but we can do this now. That's not a problem. Cheers, Tom. So hopefully you're seeing the prototype kit. Excellent. So this will look like an actual real tool in the style that Tom just showed you, but in actual fact, this is built in the .gov prototype tool by Ali and the team. and it is a facsimile of what we would have once operational. This is for full applications for householder. And so it has a lot of the functionality that we have with LDC. And that's why we started with LDC, because it's a great foundation to build on. So you can see already that the description is clearly visible for each of the projects, each of the applications. And target dates are color coded according to their expiry date and how much longer the officer has to finish the case. So if we dive into one, the layout is familiar, as Tom just showed you. So we've got the description up at the top and all of the site and application information down on the left-hand side. And if we go in, we can see here, we've still got the ability for users to upload Redline plans as PDFs, whilst the functionality for the Redline drawing tool is developed. And all information about site visits and so forth is readily available. Over on the right-hand side, we've got each of the phases of the activities that the officer will be undertaking broken down. And the important bit here is that once validated, the case officer is actually able to work on any section of this that they choose to. So imagining for a minute that the case officer is out on site and they realize that this new application is really near a site that they were already out visiting. They can just jump straight into the site visit if they so wish. And what we're working on now is looking at the logic in response to user feedback, looking at the logic that we can apply that allows us to prompt the officer whilst they're out on site. Because they're working on a web, because this tool is web enabled, they could literally be on site with an iPad and able to capture all of the information that they need to, for example, views from neighbours towards neighbours' windows and checking that sort of thing. The logic would be determined by the data that the applicant has put into Ripper and that feeds through into BoPS. So depending on the type of application and its location, that would change the logic and the flow of prompts that are represented to the officer. So what I would say is for MVP, we're not likely to be including that functionality, but what we're doing is we're laying the groundwork so that it can be included in the future. Another area of logic that we're looking at are consultees, and which consultees the officer is prompted to correspond with. And here we can see that when the correspondence has been entered into, we can track the responses of each consultee, see how long it is until they reply, and so on and so forth. Now, the users of Uniform will know that internal consultees are able to add their comments into Uniform directly and avoid all the mess of email. Well, because of the way that BoPS is built, this would actually allow all consultees in the future to liaise through the tool, and it wouldn't actually even require them to log in. It would be that the case officer is able to connect to the consultee and prompt them for their response on a case, and then the consultee might choose to log in, but could actually just respond to the communication that they receive, provide their details and comments, and that those would automatically be installed into the database that sits behind BoPS. Okay. I think, Ali, is there any other major points you wanted me to highlight here?
No, it is definitely just a work in progress still, and we're kind of iterating it and improving it. But there's, yeah, you'll keep going.
I've covered it. Okay, so look, there is plenty more that we will be digging into in coming weeks, and I would just stress the difference between what we're going to be doing as part of MVP and what we're opening the door to do in the future. There is boundless opportunity really around logic in this tool, but don't think that we're necessarily going to have all of that at MVP. It will come, but it will come because of agile development in workable chunks as and when they're ready. So you'll see more of the full householder application prototype in coming show and tells, but that concludes it for today. Tom, did you want to return to present the last few slides?
Yeah, sure. I'll just jump back across here and let me Yeah, next slide. Okay, I touched on this earlier and I'll just scoot through it now, but we had our first partners project board meeting this sprint. The purposes of the board is bring the partners together to review the progress of the development, set and influence the project direction, where we're going, and start looking at the roadmaps.
Let's get the screen up, Tom. Do you want me to share, or are you okay sharing?
Sorry, Pete, if you could just share, mate.
No problem.
Sorry, everyone. Thank you, Pete. So for those, just to quickly repeat myself, apologies for that. So just to confirm, yeah, the partner board met this sprint for the first time. We'll obviously be convening future boards, and the board looks at, the purpose of the board is to look at, set and influence the strategic direction of the project, understand where we're going, understanding the challenges and opportunities. We demoed a happy path that we demoed today, and we've also discussed further functionality and also about the next phase of development. Next slide, please, Pete. And talking about the next phase of development, what's next? So we are looking at the relationships. Well, as Pete said, we're looking at householders and how we look at the relationships between planning constraints, consultees that we need to consult, the considerations that a planning officer has, as in actually what are they assessing and how they process the application, and obviously as every planning officer's favorite thing, conditions, and how we approach conditions, and how, as Pete touched on there, we can use logic to think about the conditions and the type of conditions and how they relate to the planning application. We're going to continue story mapping for the MVP. We're also going to be looking at, again, at sort of the householder prototypes and the big picture thinking around where can BoPS go. And this is wrapped up into sprint 0 of this next phase of development. So the next phase starts after Easter. We've got lots to do. We've got to get to public beta testing of the LDC. That's one strand. We've got this householder strand, and obviously our wider program of work, which is going to be looking at building our network, our presence, looking at how we take the product to market, and some market research as well, which is super exciting. Here at Southwark, we're increasing the size of our team, as we said previously, to enable that wider program of work. Okay, next slide, Pete. Ali, can I pass over to you now?
Yeah, I just want to iterate again about getting involved in testing. It's really valuable to get planning officers, or people that are going to be using this tool every single day, testing the tool, so we can see how we can improve it and iterate it. It's always one of those challenges is getting people's time, but it's incredibly valuable. So if you do want to get involved, please contact either Tom or Peter, and we'll book you in.
And just to reiterate that, yeah, the way now that we're getting into householder applications, we are super excited about this, and we think we need to get planners looking at the MVP. We've got some planners within our partner organizations, but obviously the more planners who look at it, the better. You can help shape the future of the planning service within your council. So do get in touch. Next slide, please, Pete. So thank you. We're at the end of sprint 8 here, and this is the end of this phase of development. So we've achieved a lot, and we wouldn't have been able to achieve that without our partners. So thank you to all of our partners. We wouldn't have been able to achieve that without MHCLG funding this project. So thank you to MHCLG. We wouldn't have been able to achieve this without our great project team. So thank you to Unboxed, and thank you to colleagues within Southwark as well. For the support, and also thank you to all the user testers. As Ali just said, that your time is valuable, and we really appreciate that. But also thank you to you, the viewers, for checking in on our show and tells, for hopefully seeing that this is an exciting project. This is a part of a new paradigm, a digital planning system that is where we're going with planning. It's clearly set out from central government, from MHCLG, and we're really excited to be part of this with our partners at the Ripper project, with Catherine and partners there, and also with the Digital Place Consultation Project at Camden with Rich. And so we're really excited to be part of this and move this forward. So thank you. Our next show and tell will be at the beginning of May, once we get through the pre-election period for the London mayoral elections. But I'm sure you have lots of questions, so I will see who's in the room and we'll take your questions. So let's have a look. Can't see any questions there apart from you not being able to see my screen. So I'm going to open it to verbal questions. So any questions?
Tom, I've got one question. It's looking really good. The work's great that's progressing so far. Is there any thoughts on how we deal with planning registers in the future?
That's a great question, Kev, and I think that is definitely something we are going to be picking up through the next phase of development. We recognise that we're building a tool at the moment which is determining planning applications, but we obviously need to present that in a public database. Currently, our LDC MVP is looking at a workaround, but we recognise that we need to do some work to understand the kind of the user needs for the public register. That will be in scope for the next phase of development. We obviously welcome all input onto that process. Pete, I don't know if you had any other points, or Martin as well.
I mean, something that I would say in response to that is what it will mean once there are applications fully processed through BoPS is that we have some data stored in BoPS that potentially won't be showing up on the public register or public access tool that most councils run. So there are choices. You can either duplicate the work that you've done in BoPS into your legacy system, like your uniform, so that it shows up on public access. You can automatically feed the data from BoPS into that system so that it's in there. Or you could build a tool, there might be other options, but another is that you could build a tool that presents information from public access and BoPS, so that the user can see a new public access tool, but that public access tool feeds from two databases, BoPS and your current system. And I think that's the approach that at the moment appeals to me the most, because it allows the user to see the future and it allows us to give councils the opportunity that they can either do the additional work if that's what they want, if they want cases copied into uniform, or if they want to come away from uniform or their legacy system and migrate that data into BoPS, that's fine. Or if they don't want to do that, they just want to start using BoPS and leave their old system there, then this tool will automatically pull the relevant information from either database and present it as one. And because that's a seamless interface for the user that we can start to create very soon, the user doesn't need to worry or think or even be aware of whatever it is that the council is choosing to do behind the scenes. So that's something that we'll be turning our attention to in coming sprints and phases. I didn't know if there was anything else, Martin.
I'd just like to add one more thing. Yeah, I think it's a really important part of BoPS. One of the outcomes for the whole project is this idea of open data. So the data in BoPS is open by default. There's a public API where data can be accessed as soon as applications come in. Really, data will be made available publicly. So the idea of the current model of a register is that information is managed in these closed back-end systems and then published to the register. But we're trying to shift away from that slightly and just make data continually available. We'll definitely need to think about the public interface for that, but the data itself is definitely available. So yeah, our APIs are well documented, and people who've seen previous show and tells will have seen those demoed. That's all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Brilliant.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Kev. Great question. Are there any other questions from the room? I don't think so. If you do have any questions and you would like to email them to us, please do. Our contact details were in a previous slide. Like as I said before, we're starting the next phase of development after Easter, and we are looking forward to getting stuck in. So thank you for your time, and we'll be seeing you shortly. So thank you very much. Goodbye.